So, good morning. Is it audible? So, what all we discussed in the last class? Okay, we talked about capitalism in terms of its characteristics, in terms of its circumstances, and also in terms of phases. And as we discussed broadly, we have three or four important phases. And the first phase is mercantilism, and we took note of the developments taking place in the age of mercantilism. Particularly noticeable are joint stock companies and a shift from domestic mode of production to industrial mode of production, isn't it? And we have a system that is known as putting out system. Then today we have to start with the second phase, which is also a topic for us, or we can say the new topic, that is industrial revolution, is basically an expansion of one of the subtopics of capitalism. And this arrangement itself is suggestive of the relation between capitalism and industrialism. Clear? Both progressed in our time, hand in hand, reinforcing each other. Capitalism reinforced industrialization, industrialization reinforced and legitimized something that is called a capitalism. Both are inseparable. Is this understood? Now, with this understanding, today our plan is something like this, that we have to take note of first the concept that is called industrialization, or the concept of the industrial revolution. What do we mean by this term, that is industrial revolution? Clear? So there will be something like introductory paragraph. In introductory paragraph, we can take note of something that we can say broader trends. Is this understood? Broader trends related to the industrial revolution. Clear? Then we can take note of the second thing, that characteristics. The way we talked about characteristics of the mercantilist phase, like joint stock companies, banking and financial institutions, expansion of overseas trade, merchant capital into manufacturing, putting out system. Do you remember that? Likewise, we can also take note of some characteristics of capitalism or industrial revolution. Then we can also take note of something that is beginning. I hope I have not written the spelling correctly. If you think so, please correct me. Is the spelling correct? Beginning. I want to write Begin. I think. Okay. Beginning. Double N. Beginning. Clear? And beginning may there is a very important issue. Why in England? Is this position clear? Why in England? And then we can move further to take note of the fourth, that is a spread of the industrialization. And as part of the spread, we can take note of the countries of Western Europe and how the process of industrialization here similar or dissimilar, that we can compare the situation in England with the situation in Europe. Likewise, we can also take note of industrialization of USA, not in terms of details, but in terms of broader policies and tendencies. Clear? And then here we can also take note of the industrialization of the first Asiatic country, Japan. Clear? While talking about Japan, we are going to make a pause to take note of a very important topic related to the history of Japan, that is also called Meiji Restoration. Clear? that is associated with modernization of Japan, that is also associated with industrialization of Japan. And having discussed this topic, that is Meiji restoration, we can also shift to the fifth topic, that is consequences or implications of the Industrial Revolution. Is this plan clear to you? This is exactly what we have also discussed as part of our syllabus, rather as a part of the subjective reorganization of the syllabus. Do you remember that? So these topics are similar: capitalism, mercantilism, industrial revolution, beginning in England, spread in Europe, USA, Japan, modernization of Japan, consequences. These topics we can cover in one go, and I hope you understand the reason interrelations are very strong. It is something like this: the topics like Vienna Congress, liberalism, nationalism, unification of European revolutions, unification of Italy, unification of Germany. The way these topics were interconnected and we covered them together, in the same way we have to cover the industrial revolution. Is this understood? Clear or not? Any doubt, any confusion? No doubt, no confusion. So let us begin and let us make a heading: industrial revolution, and then we can proceed to write few lines. We are going to follow the same sequence. Is this understood? It is not important for you to make headings and subheadings the way I have made it on the board. You can just keep on changing paragraphs and understanding on your own which part is being discussed. Is this understood? So, right, the industrial revolution, the industrial revolution, the industrial revolution refers to, refers to. We are going to not define but perceive what is called industrial revolution. Clear? The industrial revolution refers to a process. I hope understand this. First thing to be understood is that it's a process. Industrial revolution can't be seen as an event. Clear? It is part of the modern transition of the world. That is something quite understandable. So the industrial revolution refers to a process of, that's why this is revolution. What? Speedy. Very speedy. Transition. Transition. Can you imagine what kind of transition? We have talked about this transition already in the class as a part of mercantilism. See, what is the last topic in the era of merchant capitalism or mercantilism? That is domestic mode of production to factory or industrial mode of production. Isn't it? The same process. The scale is going to be different, the magnitude is going to be different, the pace is going to be different. Getting this? And that's why that is called revolution. Otherwise, the process is same. So, a speedy transition from the pre-modern. We are using the term pre-modern domestic, pre-modern domestic, or the same is also called artisanal, artisans, artisanal mode of production, mode of production to to the modern modern factory, modern factory slash industrial mode of production. This is how we can perceive the term industrial revolution. Is this understood? We can't define it in terms of how much coal was produced in Germany and how much iron was produced in England. Those stale data not important for us. I hope you understand this. Clear? So once we understand the process, that is nothing but a speedy transition from domestic mode of production to the industrial mode of production. Domestic mode of production or artisanal mode of production associated with pre-modern societies, factory mode or industrial mode of production associated with the modern societies. Factories represent modernity in the same way as capitalism represents economic modernity. Is this understood? Clear? At the process started, continue writing, resume your writing and write. The process started in England. The process started in England. In the second half of, in the second half, in the second half of the 18th century, in the second half of the 18th century, initially in the, initially in the cotton textile. Do you know cotton textile? Cotton textile industry or cotton textile sector also we can write. Cotton textile sector. Soon it came to engulf other sectors like, soon it came to engulf other sectors, other sectors like coal, coal, iron, and all are complementary. Coal, iron, steam navigation, steam navigation, steam navigation, etc, etc. Clear? Right. In the first half of the 19th century, in the first half of the 19th century, we find, in the first half of the 19th century, we find the spread of SPREAD, the spread of the industrial revolution, the spread of the industrial revolution in spread of the industrial revolution in the countries of Western Europe, in the countries of Western Europe, in the countries of Western Europe, like Netherlands. You must be knowing Netherlands, also called Holland. So after England, it was Holland. Clear? Netherlands, Belgium, 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 France, France. Do you know Vienna Congress and peace established by Vienna Congress? We have written. It helped in the process of industrial revolution. Clear? So we are not making a reference to Vienna Congress here. We have already made this a connection. But we understand the whole context. Defeat of Napoleon, Vienna Congress, establishment of peace, and though not very progressive, reactionary, still peaceful environment created conditions for the industrial growth and development. Is this understood? So spread in the countries of Western Europe like Belgium, Belgium, France. Have you written France? France. The German states. See, Germany was politically not united. The German states. Do you remember Zollverein? Why Zollverein? Why that economic unity before political unity? That was to cater to the needs of industrial revolution. Understood? So North German states, North American states, not the whole America, but North America. We talked about American Civil War and economic sectionalism. North American states. North American states. Clear? Right? But, but the industrial supremacy of the but the industrial supremacy of England, but the industrial supremacy of England came to be challenged, came to be challenged, but the industrial supremacy of England came to be challenged only in the second half of, only in the second half of, only in the second half of the 19th century, only in the second half of the 19th century. That is after the unification of Italy, after the unification of Italy and Germany, after the unification of Italy and Germany. Do you remember these events we have discussed? That is the implication of these events. Unification of Italy and Germany in Europe, in Europe, and and the American Civil War. Do you remember American Civil War? And the American Civil War in America. American Civil War in the America. Clear? At the industry, one thing you must have noticed that when we talk about industrial countries of the world today, even today we count America, we count Western European countries, isn't it? And some of the Asiatic countries like Japan, Korea, isn't it? Do you find any industrial country in the Eastern Europe? Of course, industries are everywhere. But when we talk about industrial economies of the world, do we have in the list countries of Eastern Europe? Usually not. Countries of Africa? Usually not. Countries of Latin America? Brazil known for industries, Cuba known for, yes, Cuba is known for that, what is called a specific product, that is cigar, isn't it? And then, do you have any country in Asia? Yes, we have Japan, we have Korea. China is emerging industrial power in our time as part of this long term process. Is India also remembered or seen as an industrial economy? Emerging industrial economy. That is according to Marxian prediction. There is a philosopher whose name is Karl Marx, and Marx had already predicted that with time developed countries are going to be, you know, going to focus upon technology driven industries and clean industries, and manufacturing hub of the world will be what he calls department 2, that will be shifted towards lesser developed countries of the world. And this is, at least in this matter, Marxian prediction is quite correct. Now the European countries, they don't want what we can say that industrial noise and pollution, etc., etc. So they are dealing in what? Technology. They are dealing in, capital. They are dealing in some other things, and manufacturing sector is being shifted towards the third world, so-called a third world. And this is strictly according to the prediction made by Karl Marx once upon a time, while predicting the behavior of capitalist nations, capitalism, and industrialization. Clear? So here, if we take note of the industrial countries of the world, we still count the countries of Western Europe or not? And we can count them on fingertips. And industrialization, you must be knowing that even at the time of Indian independence, that was 1947, do you know what was the rank of India in terms of industrialization? Whatever limited industrialization was, but still India had a rank in that industrialization, 10th rank in the whole world. A colony like India in 1947 had 10th rank. That simply means very few countries of the world have witnessed industrialization. Yeah, that was not due to East India Company. You must be knowing East India Company, and its rule came to end in 1858 when we have transfer of company power from the company to the crown. That was despite the British rule. It was not because of the British rule. We do have our industrialists. You must be knowing some industrial families emerged during the British period. Birla, Tata. First World War particularly helped us in this enterprise because in the First World War, supplies from Europe came to halt. And because of this, Indian capital was, for time being, saved from undue or unfair competition. And then industrialists witnessed or realized rather that there is a basic contradiction between the industrial interest of England and the Indian industrialist or Indian industrial interests. And that's why the movement that is known as non-cooperation and Khilafat movement is particularly characterized by the participation of the capitalist classes. Is this understood? Because they had realized that the demands made by Congress is in their favor. Clear? You must have heard of some industrialists like Purushottam Das Tandon, Ghanshyam Das Birla, Jamshedji Tata. Have you ever heard of these names? These big families, they emerged during the same time. So then, right, the industrialization of the industrialization. We are taking note of broader tendencies. The industrialization of, do you know there is a country called Russia? This was to represent a pole in the bipolar world created post Second World War. So the industrialization of Russia typically followed typically followed its typically followed its Bolshevik revolution. Even before this, we have little bit, but typically followed its Bolshevik revolution of 1917 and the formation of USSR and the formation of USSR. You may have heard of this entity, formation of the USSR in the first half of the 20th century. In the first half of the 21st, sorry, not 21st, 20th century. In the first half of the 20th century. In the first half of the 20th century. And came to, and came to, and came to adopt the so-called, came to adopt the so-called socialist, so-called socialist pattern, so-called socialist pattern of industrialization, so-called socialist pattern of industrialization. And what is the socialist pattern of industrialization? We are going to introduce here a little socialism. We have yet not talked about socialist pattern of industrialization with focus upon heavy industries, with focus upon heavy industries and strict state control and regulation, and strict strict state control and regulation, strict state control and regulation of the economic development, particularly under particularly under the strategy of particularly under the strategy of 5-year plans. Have you heard of 5-year plans? 5-year plans. The socialist pattern, the socialist pattern of industrial development, the socialist pattern. Now here we can make a pause to understand something. See, industrialization of USA, industrialization of England, industrialization of Western European countries, they followed what is or what can be called capitalist model of industrialization with freedom of enterprise, with no so many things we understand this. We have talked about Adam Smith, we have talked about characteristics of capitalism in the last class. Clear? But of course, that was not the only model of industrialization. We also have industrialization with the role of a state. And this started when we have socialism adapting itself to the circumstances of Russia by or under Lenin, we can say, who assumed a role of a state in the transitions which were required for ultimately establishing the socialist societies once predicted by Karl Marx. Clear? So, do you find? I think UPSC has asked question on this. कि NEP, that is New Economic Policy of Lenin, also affected the Indian strategy after India's independence. So basically, we are going to make a passing reference to this. Clear? So what we have written here came to influence, not completely, but of course, came to influence even even the policies of the Indian government, even the policies of the Indian government after independence, after independence, Indian government after independence under what is known as the mixed model, under what is known as, have you ever heard of this term, mixed model? What is known as the mixed model of economic development, mixed model of economic development, which that is also called Nehruvian model, mixed model of economic development. In bracket, you can also write this way: Nehru, not only Nehru, but there was a statistician, Mahalanobis. Mahalanobis. Have you heard of Mahalanobis? That model is known as Nehru Mahalanobis model. You can Google the name Mahalanobis to find out who he was actually. Mahalanobis. I may make mistakes in the spelling, but that's why I want you to check it. Simply Google Nehru Mahalanobis model. You people must be knowing about this model. Can you find anything like this on Google? Nehru Mahalanobis model. Yes. Got it? Yes. So under what is known as the mixed model or Nehru Mahalanobis model of economic development, of economic development, which synthesized, which tried to synthesize, this way right, which tried to synthesize, which tried to synthesize, synthesize the socialist goals, socialist goals. So goals were the same as reflected in the Indian Constitution. Socialist goals, synthesized socialist goals with the liberal, that is capitalist. What is liberalism? We have discussed. With the liberal means. With the liberal means. Getting this idea? Right? Another country. This is introduction. I hope you understand this. Right? Another a country, another country, means के बाद full stop, and after that right, another a country following the socialist model of economic development, another country following the socialist model of economic development was was China. Do you know China? Was China. Was China, which has become, which has become in the recent past, which has become, of course, in the recent past, in, after putting commas both sides you are writing, which has become China, which has become, comma, in the recent past, a fastly industrializing country, fastly industrializing a country, fastly industrializing a country in the world, in the world, emerging as a manufacturing hub, समझते हो ना, emerging as a manufacturing hub of the world, emerging as a manufacturing hub, HUB, hub of the world. Is this understood? Then right, but see, right, it has made unique experiment, it has made unique experiment, it has made unique experiment, of course, that is its a strategy of development, has made unique experiment in in synthesizing, in synthesizing, in synthesizing an authoritarian regime, political regime, an authoritarian political regime. You must know China is criticized for this. An authoritarian political regime, an authoritarian political regime, protecting, protecting or encouraging, encouraging, protecting or encouraging, encouraging capitalist, capitalist, capitalist ventures. Got it? Capitalist ventures or entrepreneurship, 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 and 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 neoliberal. Do you know there is something that's called neoliberal, neoliberal economic principles, neoliberal economic principles. So politically conservative, economically liberal. India is economically liberal as well as politically liberal, and that's why some Indians say, let us go for authoritarianism, because authoritarianism is good for development. In democracy, we find many hurdles in the decision making. I hope understand this kind of discourses are there in the world in which we are living. Is this understood? That is one reason behind the popularity of our Prime Minister Modi is that a strong image that he can take decisions fastly and without any confusion. This is what his supporters believe, isn't it? And in the recent past, due to erosion of liberalism, not only socialism, democratic processes are today seen as impediments in the decision making. For example, activism is not encouraged. You must be knowing Aravalis, the recent debate related to Aravalis. So we have environmental activists following democratic and liberal means to save this, and then on the other hand, we have authoritarian government. I hope understand what kind of intermixing is going on. Clear or not? ठीक है. देखिए कि the industrialization of Japan, the industrialization of Japan in Asia, the industrialization of Japan in Asia occupies a unique place, occupies a unique place, occupies a unique place, occupies a unique place as as it was the first Asiatic country. It was the first Asiatic country, first Asiatic country to industrialize itself, first Asiatic country to industrialize itself, to industrialize itself, following Western, Wester, and Western, Western model, Western model, that is capitalist model, Western model of economic development, Western model or capitalist model of economic development, Western model of economic development. Is this understood? Then, right, among other Asian countries, among other Asian countries, witnessing, witnessing, among other Asiatic countries, witnessing industrialization, witnessing industrialization, we can particularly mention, we can particularly mention, please mention any country that you know, particularly mention. No, Japan we have already mentioned. South Korea, South Korea, North Korea we exactly don't know what is happening there. बस इतना पता है कि एक गोल मटोल क्यूट सा आदमी है वहां पे नॉर्थ कोरिया में. हैव यू सीन दैट पर्सन? क्या नाम है उसका? हाँ, मासूम लगता है ना, मेरी तरह थोड़ा भोला भाला. हाँ, तो क्या है नॉर्थ कोरिया का पोजीशन वी डोंट नो. ये जो कंट्रीज है जिनको एशियाटिक टाइगर्स कहते हैं साउथ ईस्ट एशिया में, दे आर ऑल्सो नोन फॉर, नॉट नोन फॉर इंडस्ट्रीज, दे आर बेसिकली नोन फॉर सर्विस. ठीक है ना, दुबई सर्विस, गल्फ की कंट्रीज पेट्रोलियम, इजंट इट? तो अभी भी उंगलियों पे आप इंडस्ट्रियलाइज्ड कंट्रीज को दुनिया में गिन सकते हैं. One thing is emerging out of this discussion and this introductory paragraph is that it's a long term process. It's a long term process, and use of the term revolution for a long term process is at times criticized. Getting this idea? How can you call it revolution when the process is a process of evolution? एक्चुअली दोनों बातें सही है. ये बात भी सही है इसलिए कि इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन इज अ लॉन्ग टर्म प्रोसेस, 200-300 ईयर से तो चल ही रहा है, अभी भी चल रहा है, अनफोल्डिंग इटसेल्फ. लेकिन रिवोल्यूशन का वर्ड यूज करना भी बहुत गलत नहीं है, फॉर द सिंपल रीजन कि इफ यू कंपेयर द पेस ऑफ डेवलपमेंट इन द प्री मॉडर्न टाइम, दैट इज मेडिवल एंड एंशियंट, तो उसके कंपेरिजन में तो रिवोल्यूशन दिख ही रहा है. इंटरनली अगर देखें सिर्फ मॉडर्न टाइम में, तो इट अपीयर्स टू बी इवोल्यूशन. बात समझ गया ना? जैसे ट्रेन के अंदर बैठ के अगर ट्रेन के अंदर देखें तो क्या लगता है? चल नहीं रही, स्पीड कम है. लेकिन अगर बाहर से देखें उसी ट्रेन को तो बहुत स्पीड में चल रही होती है ना. तो कुछ इस तरह की अंडरस्टैंडिंग है. तो हम लोग अब क्या करेंगे कि पैराग्राफ चेंज करेंगे, और पैराग्राफ चेंज करने के बाद ये रिवोल्यूशन वर्सेस इवोल्यूशन वाले मसले को निपटा लेंगे. ठीक है ना? आपसे पूछा जा सकता है कि हाउ जस्टिफाइड वी आर इन यूजिंग द टर्म इंडस्ट्रियल रिवोल्यूशन. यूपीएससी के क्वेश्चंस आपको पता है ओपिनियन बेस्ड हुआ करते हैं. ठीक है ना? तो लिख लीजिए. Thus it appears that THES, thus it appears that the so-called industrial revolution is Thus, it appears that the so called industrial revolution is a long term historical process, a long term historical process, which is still, STILL, अलग अलग सेक्टर्स का नाम लिखना जरूरी नहीं है, which is still unfolding itself, which is still unfolding itself with different degrees, still unfolding itself with different degrees of success, with different degrees of success in different parts of the world, in different parts of the world, in different parts of the world, and in different sectors, and in different sectors, in different sectors of the economic life, in different sectors of the economic life, different sectors of the economic life. It is for this reason, at times, some reservations are expressed. It is for this reason, at times, some reservations, some reservations are, some reservations are expressed, some reservations are expressed regarding the use of the term revolution. Some reservations are expressed regarding the use of the term revolution to refer to use of a term revolution to refer to such a long term historical tendency, to refer to such a long term historical tendency, which can better be seen as historical tendency, which can better be seen as, which can better be seen, अंग्रेजी सही जा रही है ना, better be seen as, ठीक है, which can better be seen as an evolution, as evolution. Clear? But in the light of, but in the light of, but in the light of the pace of development, pace of development, but in the light of the pace of development, in comparison to, in comparison, sorry, but in the light of the pace of development, don't write in comparison to, right? Noticed in the pre-modern societies, but in the light of the pace of development noticed in the pre-modern societies, noticed in the pre-modern societies, it appears to be, it appears to be, it appears to be, it appears to be a revolution. It appears to be a, it appears to be indeed a revolution. This way, right? It appears to be indeed a revolution. Is this understood? Indeed a revolution. So whether a revolution or evolution, this is very easy to understand. ये कोई बहुत complication नहीं है. So thus in the introductory paragraph, we have understood the long-term nature of this process of transition which started in England. And we have also listed some of the industrialized countries of the world with strategies adopted by them, not in terms of details, but in terms of broader tendencies. Is this understood? चलिए. Now, second sub part of, or second part of this chapter, आप बताओ कौन सा है वो? Characteristics. ठीक है ना? So right